Control flow is actually syntax used by Python or other program to determine the order in which a statement should be executed. One of it is the if statement. So if you have an if, so based on this condition, a statement should be executed. Or maybe using for loop. So in if statement, we just check a condition. If that condition is valid, do the statement. If it is not valid, do other ones. Or maybe you have different condition. If this condition no, else if the other condition up to the time it will reach the final condition. And then for for loop and the while loop, we use it in iteration to iterate maybe 10 times or 100 times. So for that condition, keep doing this until you reach certain stage. Let me give you an example. If we have this ATM machine I'll be using, so as long as the user exits or remove his card, it should loop back to the insertion of card and then requesting pin. So as long as the condition is terminated, it should be looping. Just the way we loop and we iterate. So we're going to see how we can implement this in the considering we want to perform if statement, if statement. Let's say for example, first have to declare a variable. So let's say we want to say if this variable, let's say 20. So if this variable, or let's just say 19, is greater than, okay, let's say maybe 10. If it is greater than 19, okay, so we want to print a statement that maybe x is not a teenager. Okay, yeah, something like this. So let's run it. Make sure that there's no error. Mm, means this. Okay, okay, yeah, yeah. So the reason why it is not the statement was not executed is because that condition that we want to testify is not being validated, so it wasn't true. So simple example of if statement, that's one limitation of if this statement is not true, don't do anything. So that is the if statement. So if the value that we declare, the variable that we define is not greater than 19, don't do anything, but rather if it is greater than 19, you should display that this candidate, this variable. So we declare a variable is an integer 20. So if this variable, which is a 20, is greater than 19, we want to execute a statement, which is what x is not an integer, rather it's an adder or something like that. So in a scenario whereby we want to validate, we want to execute the other option, which is what if definitely is not greater than this, definitely that value should be less than 19. So if it is not less than 19, so if it is greater, it will execute. If it is not, it will not do anything. So for us to expand the condition, we will say in the table. So if this variable we define is greater than 19, we should have the statement. Else, it is less than 19. Execute, it is an 18 either. So what if it is 10, the one we use in the first instance? Let's run it and see. We see and this expression is satisfied. So the if is limited to only one condition. The if else is expand the if statement by considering both sides. So if it is true, execute this. Else it is not true, execute the other condition. So you see how we can implement the condition statement using if else. If it is something like this, it is an if statement. But rather, if it is something like this, it is an if else statement. So let me correct it. This one is an if statement. This one is if else statement where we have else want to have this statement is integer. So if it is this, it will execute the first option, which is this. So but if it is less than the 19, it will execute this condition. So the next one is the for loop that we discussed. This for loop is used for iterating across certain values. So let's say, for example, we have numbers, and these numbers consist of a list of integers. Okay, so we can say for, which is the for loop that we want to use, for number that are in the numbers, we want to print. Okay. So it's like for number in the numbers, so it will say number is 1, number is 2, number is 3, to all values, and then we want to print it. So I iterate across this list, and also we are going to print across the list. So when you run it, see that it will list 1, 2, 3, 4 after the necessary information. So this is how we implement the for loop in Python. The next one is how we can implement the while loop. The while loop, let's say we have count as 0. One of the most incredible thing about Python is we don't have to include semicolon like other programming languages. So we say while the count is less than maybe 3, we want print, maybe let's say count is count. So count should be incremented by 1. So here we have declared a variable, define a variable as 0, and then we set as long as starting from 0 to, as long as the count has not reached 3, has not reached 2, it's not less than, because it's just less than, so it has not reached, as long as the count did not reach 3, we want to print what the count is by incrementing it by 1, 1, 1, 1. So at first instance, the count is 0, we are going to, it's less than 2, 3, we are going to print 0, which is this. The count now will be incremented by 1. Now the count will be 2, will be 1. 0 plus 1 is 1. Is the count less than 3? Yes, print it, which is 1. This print out. So the next thing is increment that 1 by 1. So now automatically 1 plus 1 will be 2. And we will now check the count. Is the count which is 2 less than 3? Yes, print it. Count is 2, which is exactly what happened here. Now the 2 will be incremented to 1. Then you say 2 plus 1 is 3. Now it will goes back and then say, is the 3 less than 3? Yes. Now it will stop. So you see we have looked around the values and then we stop at certain state. The same thing with this, we loop around this variable list. As long as we have exhausted the list, we stopped. That is why we loop around 1, 2, 3, and then we stop at 4, because the list stopped at 4.